It was a truly odd sight in the White House this morning. Donald Trump was like wandering around the North Lawn and nobody knew what he was doing and he was just making circles around it. So then the press asked him, "What are you doing? Why are you walking around in circles right now?" And Donald Trump said, "Because I'm looking for a spot to put a 100-foot American flag. We're going to put American flags everywhere." That's what Donald Trump has been focused on this morning as he has taken a wrecking ball to our federal government, a wrecking ball to the lives of hundreds of millions of people in this country. This is what he's doing. Here's what he said. 100-foot tall American flag, everybody. Here, play this clip.
You said you were going up to the lawn for a flag. What was going on?
We're putting up a beautiful, almost 100-foot tall American flag on this side and another one on the other side, 2 flags, top of the line. And they've needed flagpoles for 200 years. It was something I've often said, they don't have a flagpole per se. So we're putting one right where you saw us, and we're putting another one on the other side on top of the mounds. It's going to be 2 beautiful poles. Paid for by Trump.
Now, this follows Donald Trump's bizarre press conference that we covered in the Oval Office yesterday, where he seemed to kind of walk back his aggressive stance on China, or let's just call it what it really is, cave to China, right? Yesterday's press conference, Donald Trump said, "Yeah, I'm not going to go hard on China. I'm not going to bring up COVID in the negotiations with them." Okay. He goes, 145% tariffs on China. That's way too high. That's way too high. Okay, well, you're the one who put those tariffs on China. You're the one who has screwed up the shipping back and forth, importers, exporters. There's virtually an embargo on trade right now with China based on their retaliatory tariffs, is what's taking place. So Donald Trump got headlines like this today. Caveman from the Daily News, from Barron's, Trump blinks and U.S.-China trade war. Then it says finding the off-ramp will be hard. All right, so the market reacted favorably to that. Okay, maybe there's going to be de-escalation. So what does Donald Trump do this morning? While he's talking about his big, beautiful flagpoles, he then starts talking about how much he loves tariffs. And he says America was the richest in 1870 to 1913. Tariffs are going to make us really rich. Tariffs are the greatest. Here, play this clip.
Everybody wants to be a part of what we're doing. They know that they can't get away with it any longer, but they're still going to do fine. And we're going to have a country that you can be proud of, not a laughing stock all over the world for many years. In 1913, they traded to the income tax system. We used to be all tariff, and we had no income tax, and we had the wealthiest country we ever had proportionately. From about 1870 to 1913, it was all tariffs, and we had more money than anybody. They had committees how to spend the money. They had so much money they didn't know how to spend. Then some brilliant person said, let's go income tax. Let's let the people pay. Now, we're going to be able to substantially lower taxes when this is finished.
Folks, I made a video about this earlier this morning. What this has all been about was market manipulation, right? There was a secret meeting, private meeting yesterday with the bankers, billionaires, oligarchs, and Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Public wasn't invited. Media wasn't invited. And Scott Bessent he said that he sees de-escalation with China happening. And he says the situation with China as it stands right now is unsustainable. But he did also add that negotiations with China haven't even started, but that a deal is possible. And on that, the market started doing well yesterday. I mean, look, they've tanked day after day after day after day. So doing well is all relative to the fact that like the NASDAQ was down since Trump took office 20%, the S&P down 15%, the Dow almost down 10%. But all of a sudden the market started doing a little bit better. Then in aftermarket trading, Donald Trump made those comments about China, or right before aftermarket trading, when the markets closed, Donald Trump made those statements. And so most regular investors did not have access to all of this information. And to me, it was just market manipulation. They haven't even initiated the conversations with China at all. So then what Donald Trump posted this morning as well, he said the following. This was a post that he made at 6:35 a.m. I'm suing the law firm of Perkins Coie for their egregious and unlawful acts, in particular the conduct of a specific member of the firm, only to find out that the judge assigned to this case is Beryl Howell, an Obama appointee and a highly biased and unfair disaster. Pause there. Donald, you are not suing Perkins Coie right now. They are suing you before federal judge Beryl Howell in Washington, D.C. You did sue him several years ago in the Southern District of Florida. Alina Habba was your lawyer. You lost that case. It was before federal judge Middlebrooks. You were sanctioned over $1 million or close to $1 million by Judge Middlebrooks for bringing a frivolous action against dozens of people and groups, including Perkins Coie. But that's not what this case is, Donald. Is everything okay? Wandering the North Lawn, talking about big flagpoles, making up cases that don't, they're suing you, Donald. And then he starts attacking Judge Beryl Howell. She ruled against me in the past, a shocking display of sick judicial temperament on a case that ended up working out very well for me on appeal. Her ruling was so pathologically bad that it became the talk of the town. I could have a 100% perfect case that she would angrily rule against me. It's called Trump derangement syndrome, and she's got a bad case of it. To put it nicely, Beryl Howell is an unmitigated train wreck. No justice at all. So Donald Trump has issued executive orders against all of these law firms, basically preventing the government or preventing people from doing business with law firms since he doesn't like the cases that these law firms take. Now, he's gotten some law firms to bend the knee, but firms like Perkins Coie are standing up to him, and they sued the Trump regime. That's what this case is about. So Trump is whining that they have Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, and by the way, if we've been following what's going on Fox in order to report to you the way state regime media known as Fox injects disinformation in the veins of its viewers. But here is Jesse Waters on Fox, and here he keeps talking about, oh, these people, these judges, they're infected with Trump derangement syndrome. It's a real disease. And this is what they actually sell to their MAGA mush brain viewers, who themselves, and Fox has Trump propaganda, Trump derangement syndrome. Here, watch this.
So they're having a hard time coming to grips with reality. Clinical psychiatrists call this a psychotic break, when you sever yourself from reality and live in a different world that you've created in your own mind. These are the people we're dealing with.
I think it's important, though, that we reflect on where Trump wants to bring this nation and what these cases are about when Trump wants to remove due process, why it's important that we fight for due process. One, it's in our Constitution. It should not be a controversial idea that our government owes humans, due process, and people are presumed innocent. The government has to show evidence against people. This should not be crazy concepts. I know, yes, I'm a law professor, but this should be a concept that we all understand, because you just take a look at what happened in Turkey recently, right? And this was news from earlier today. A Swedish journalist is facing 12 years in a Turkish prison after insulting the country's president, Erdogan. You attack Erdogan in Turkey, he puts you in jail. 12 years, no due process. As our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, says, if we don't stop this, this is where we are headed. These are the people who Trump looks up to. People like Erdogan, people like Putin. You know, it's so interesting when the EU just has to come together right now and basically condemn the United States. The EU, through its foreign policy chief, just came out with a powerful statement saying they will never ever recognize Crimea as part of Russia. When Donald Trump and Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's advisor or envoy to Russia, have all said that as part of the deal they're trying to jam down the throat of Ukraine, a total capitulation, they want Ukraine to basically surrender, is to recognize Crimea as part of Russia, which Russia stole, annexed. the way Donald Trump wants to take Canada. As this account, Betty Bauer says, it's wild that Europe, the allies the United States joined hands with to stand up against Russia, is now having to stand up against the United States for enabling Russia's war crimes. Truly is astonishing and deeply humiliating for the United States of America and shows utter weakness. Should also be noted that auto groups have all kind of united together a joint letter that is kind of uncharacteristic, if not unprecedented, for the automotive industry. Such organization rarely, if ever, sign on to a single joint message from the CNBC article written by Mike Whalen. Auto groups lobby Trump administration against part tariffs in rare unified message. 6 of the top policy groups representing the U.S. automotive industry are uncharacteristically joining forces to lobby the Trump administration against 25% tariffs on auto parts that are set to take effect on May 3rd. And rightfully so. I mean, we're seeing, listen to what this guy Ryan Peterson says here, right? In the 3 weeks since the tariffs took effect, ocean container bookings from China to the United States are down over 60% industry-wide. The U.S. imports $600 billion worth of goods from China every year, 95% of that via ocean freight. Those goods sell at retail for about $2 trillion. If the tariffs on China continue at this level, we will see a $2 trillion hit to economic activity in our country, the failure of tens of thousands of American businesses, and the laying off of millions of employees. We will also have mass shortages this summer as goods don't show up. The first ships carrying goods paying the duties arrived on Monday, and the decline in freight arrivals will hit in the coming weeks. Companies stocked up on inventory in anticipation of April 2nd, so it will take a while before the shortages hit. If Trump reverses course very soon, he could head off the worst of this catastrophe, but every day it gets worse. With bookings down 65%, ocean carriers canceled 25% of their sailings from China the last 2 weeks. Those ships are already being repositioned to other trade lanes. That's not getting enough attention right here. And I think that's what Scott Bessent is seeing behind the scenes. But in front of the scenes, what's Donald Trump doing? Donald Trump's walking around in circles on the North Lawn talking about 100-foot flagpoles and then going back to talking about how much he loves big, beautiful tariffs. And Scott Bessent, even though he spoke in that room, which I think is filled with just market manipulation taking place. I'm just giving you my opinion. Secret private meeting with the Treasury Secretary talking about data that the rest of us don't get, but it happens in a secret meeting. And then people are trading on that information. I mean, what else would you want to call it? But Bessent hasn't even started the negotiations with China. And when Donald Trump goes, they hold the cards. Who's got the cards? They don't hold the cards. It's always projection. Donald Trump doesn't hold the cards, period, full stop. When people like Putin see the weakness, this is from the Moscow Times, Trump Tower, Moscow, rare earths and geopolitical perks, how the Kremlin plans to bait Trump into a grand bargain. This article talks about how one of the things that Putin's telling Donald Trump is, we'll build you a 110-story tower in Moscow, the biggest ever. If you could do this deal for us, that gives us control of Ukraine, Donald, and we get Crimea, we get all the other areas that are recognized by the United States that we unlawfully invaded and took over. We'll build you the biggest tower ever, Donald. Seriously, that's where we're at. Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. We'll keep you posted.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.